Hundreds of thousands of pro-government Iranians have been rallying to mark the 31st anniversary of Iran's revolution. President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad used the rally to attack the West. He also claimed his country had produced its first stock of higher enriched uranium, significant, of course, for the country's nuclear ambitions. The opposition has been trying to stage counter-demonstrations, but it faced a big security crackdown, and several of its leaders have reportedly been attacked. Well, Potkin Azarmehr runs what he calls a blog for what he calls secular pro-democracy activists in and outside Iran.
The most ironic fact about today was that the granddaughter of the founder of the Islamic Republic, 31 years after the victory of the Islamic Revolution, was seen as an enemy of the state and was arrested along with her husband. And that really just goes to show where the revolution is heading and how tighter this circle of elite is getting.
What, are you talking about the granddaughter of Ayatollah Khomeini?
That's right, yeah. She was arrested with her husband, who's also the brother of the former President Khatami, in the protests. It's really ironic. I thought it was just remarkable that something like this could happen 31 years after the 1979 revolution. But going back to the protests, let's just give a bit of background. We had 10 days of what's known as the Fajr period, which is from the day when Ayatollah Khomeini came back from exile to the day when the Islamic, to the day of the victory of the Islamic Revolution. In this 10 days, we've had 2 executions to scare people. We've had 9 more sentences of execution which have passed. We've had over 1,000 sympathisers of the Green Movement arrested. We've had daily manoeuvres of the riot guards in the streets. We've had very, very stern remarks by the repressive forces, saying that they're not going to tolerate any more dissent, which amazes me, as if they ever tolerated any dissent before. And yet, despite all this, the people still came on the street. And the nature of the way they came to the street as well is quite interesting as well. I mean, the protests were very sporadic today, scattered through different districts. However, they were ongoing until 7 o'clock London time. I called Iran, and there were still protests going on. Sadeghieh Square, which was like the main hotbed of today's protest, which is where Karoubi had promised to be at 10 o'clock, was constantly, the anti-riot guards, they were dispersing the people, but the people were coming back time and time again. They just weren't letting go. And several districts throughout today, like Ayasha, Sadeghieh, were in control of people for a while, which was just completely amazing, And this was supposed to be the biggest day in the Islamic Republic.
Well, it was. They would argue it was, because hundreds of thousands of people turned out in support of the government as well. Let's not forget that.
No, hang on a second. If you watch the state TV images, there was only 2 images that they kept repeating. Both of them were close-shot images of the crowd. There was no aerial views of the crowd. And even then, the sound was muted, so you couldn't hear what the crowd was saying, just in case you could hear the rest of the protesters that were nearby. And there was one still image that they kept showing, which was obviously photoshopped. It looked like the front bit was cropped and pasted to the back. The mural on the right-hand side was pixelated, and there was inconsistency in the back of the picture.
So you're saying that there weren't hundreds of thousands of supporters of the government out in force today to celebrate the 31st anniversary of the revolution? Is that what you're saying? Well, where are you getting your information from, Potkin?
Let me explain what I'm saying. Normally, on this day, we have marches where pro-government people that are organised by the state to celebrate the anniversary of the revolution march from one point to another point. The military parades, etc. None of that happened today. It was as if they got the pro-government supporters in one confined space for the duration of Ahmadinejad's speech. We've seen footage of all the food handouts and the different gift handouts that they were giving today to the pro-government forces who turned up for the rally. I think perhaps you could say that the pro-government supporters, which even correspondents under restrictions reported, many of them were bussed in from the provinces and outside Tehran, Maybe you could say there were about. I mean, we need to see the aerial pictures to get a good estimate. But maybe you had about 200,000. Now, in a city of Tehran where you have a population of 12 million, 200,000 pro-government supporters coming out on the most important day in the Islamic Republic calendar isn't that much.
Well, it's not if there were 1 million people opposing them, but 200,000 sounds like a lot from where we're sitting here in London, Potkin. And I just wonder whether the government will point to this and say, look, we're not as beleaguered as Potkin would have. We do actually have a lot of support wherever in the country it may be coming from. And those people turned out for us on the anniversary of the Islamic Revolution.
Let me put it to you another way. If the pro-government support was so large and the anti-government protests were so small, why were there restrictions on reporters? Why were 200 reporters only taken to the Freedom Square where the pro-government rally was and they weren't allowed to go to other places to report or anything like that? If they were so confident, why don't they allow the journalists to come back without restrictions? I'm sure most of the journalists are very fair people. They would then report saying that, yeah, the pro-government forces are huge and they're much more than the rest of the protesters. The very fact that they're putting restrictions on reporters means that there's something wrong. 7 months after the protest, they failed to show the world that they're still in complete control of the streets of Tehran.
Yeah, and talking of restrictions on journalism, what do you make of the reaction to the news that the BBC and the Deutsche Welle, the German broadcasters, and the Voice of America International have jointly condemned illegal Iranian jamming of radio and television channels?
Well, this has been going on for a while with BBC Persian and VOA Persian. Deutsche Welle, I think, was new in this thing. But what the Iranian government is doing, which is jamming this signal for the satellite stations, is completely against all international conventions. And it's about time that the international community stands up to this. But, I mean, it's obvious why they're doing it. The flow of information is the blood supply of the green movement. It wasn't just the satellite stations that were jammed. I mean, the speed of the internet in the last 10 days has been granted to something like 48 kilobytes per second. Now, that is less than the speed of internet using dial-up modems. The Gmail, people couldn't use Gmail, people couldn't use Yahoo. There was a complete news blackout in Iran. You know, people just didn't know what was happening. And then despite all of this, they still came on the streets, and we still got footage out of Iran. The only thing that, you know, you could say was that the footage that we got today, they seemed to be shorter than usual. I think there was hardly any footage that was longer than 2 minutes. And I think that was to do with that could be attributed to the very slow speed of the internet. And I think we will get more footage over the next few days. But given all the restrictions, given all the intimidation, what happened today can only make me, as an Iranian, stand very, very proud, and I'm extremely proud of my courageous compatriots.
Blogger Potkin Azarmehr there. The fashion world has reacted with shock and dismay at the death of Alexander McQueen, the celebrated designer. McQueen, 4-time British Designer of the Year, was found dead at his central London home. Earlier I spoke to